Rediscovery. Hi, beautiful. Welcome.
We're Kiana and Megan.
Two wives, two mothers, and two women on a journey of rediscovering ourselves.
Megan is a boudoir and motherhood photographer and yoga instructor.
And Kiana is a health coach who specializes in supporting women and mothers,
While our professions may look different, our heart behind the space is the same.
helping women reconnect with who they are beyond the roles they carry.
We don't claim to have all the answers.
We're still learning, growing, and becoming right alongside you.
So pull up a chair and join us at the table.
This
Is her rediscovery.
rediscovery.
I think there is so much to be said about your life is completely different after having a kid
Mm-hmm.
because so many things shift.
Your marriage, relationships, everything postpartum,
Your body, your self-image.
your dynamic at home.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And I think this is something that really isn't talked about enough.
Yeah.
Like the effect having a child has on your marriage.
And other relationships, like with your own parents as well.
Right. That evolves after becoming a parent yourself.
And then, like, you you think back to when your parents were like, you'll understand when you become a mother.
And then you understand.
And then you understand. It just all clicks and comes into perspective.
Yeah. So part of these shifting dynamics is how do you navigate it?
How do you overcome resentment with your spouse?
Yeah. How do you have those hard conversations? How do you have vulnerable emotional conversations that are productive and not just devolving into fights?
Into fights, explosions.
Yeah. And that's something that most of us are not equipped with before we need it. So we hope that starting this conversation helps you guys reflect on your own situation and start this conversation in your own lives.
Yeah.
Let's dive in. There's so many shifts that happen from just learning how to breastfeed and learning how to step into your role as a mother. Your
Yeah.
marriage changes, your friendships change,
Yeah.
your relationship with your parents, like your relationship with yourself. It just keeps on changing. And that can be really overwhelming.
Yeah.
Change is always scary, whether it's a good change or a bad change.
Yeah. And there's shifts that are constantly made, especially, after you have your firstborn and then also continuing to have more children. There's just like a whole nother shift that happens each time you have a new baby. And that could be just in your dynamic, but then also in your marriage and in your friendships. And
It shifts again each time you have a kid.
yeah, it really does. Because I mean, I've had friendships where we were friends after my first. We started drifting away after my second, and then we were completely not even talking anymore by the time I had my third, or was even considering having a third.
Mm.
So it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of possessive people out there who feel like they're entitled to having more of your attention, even though you can't give them that attention.
That stuff is, I don't have a lot of experience with that. My friend group was so small before I even got pregnant.
So was mine.
I mean, I did have times in my life where I had a larger group of friends,
Yeah.
and those just kind of they dissolved so far away from me starting a family and getting married. So when I finally got married, my friend group was like 3 people.
Yeah.
And when I had a baby, there was only one person who I got more distant with, which was my best friend Shayla, because she was stepping into a different stage of life than I was. It was
Yeah.
almost like us drifting away when you went into motherhood and I
Yeah.
was going into a college life experience.
Yeah. Shayla is your Kiana.
Yeah. And you and I got so much closer when I got married and when I started the pregnancy journey. I got closer with Shayla's sister, Joelle,
Yes.
through that. And yeah, so some friendships got closer, some got more distant.
Yeah.
Me and Shayla still talk, just not all the time and not about all the same things as we used to.
Yeah.
Mm. I think the biggest change for me was my marriage.
Yeah.
So we used to go on dates every week. We used to go on vacations every year. We would go clubbing, we would go dancing, we would go out to eat all the time. We had social lives.
Yeah.
We were active. We went to family parties. We were very blessed to have had mentors come into our lives to help
Mhm.
us learn how to be a healthy couple because we weren't always a healthy couple.
Mhm.
We had both come to each other after having really toxic relationships. So we brought a lot of toxicity into our relationship just from unhealed traumas and unhealed wounds.
Mhm.
So we had a fairly healthy marriage, minimal fighting, lots of freedom and lots of conversations. And then once I got pregnant and that dynamic shifted and I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and he would take over like all of the financial responsibilities, his identity was starting to shift, my identity was starting to shift. And then me needing him for so much more throughout my pregnancy created an additional shift where it wasn't like a give and take. It
Mhm.
was I need you to do everything for me. I'm
Yeah.
high maintenance. I don't have the energy. I don't have the capacity to do anything. I need all of these things done and I need you to do it after you come home from a hard day's work.
Yeah.
No more time to socialize. It's like you work to take care of me and then you're home to take care of me. And then after having the baby, it shifted again into, now we're both parents where he had paternity leave, so he got to be there for the 4th trimester practicing changing his first diaper and navigating the reflux and the spit up, and he bottle fed her and had all of these wonderful firsts, and then when he went back to work, well, another shift because now he has an out. He has adult interaction. He has something to do that's just his to do, even if it is work. It's unrelated to family life. He has a purpose outside of his family that he's working to do, and I started resenting him for it. He had a cousin getting married and he was a part of the wedding, so he was going to, Las Vegas for, like, 3 days for a bachelor party, and I was so upset with him.
I remember that.
How can you be away from me and this newborn baby for 3 days to go party in Vegas? And I resented him for it
Yeah.
because I didn't have anything outside of my child.
Yeah.
And my relationship with him was getting really strained at that point.
But now as baby is getting older, how has your marriage shifted?
I wanna say it's shifting for the better. I had to go back to work. The stay-at-home mom life isn't my current reality.
Yeah.
I work part-time, so I'm a part-time stay-at-home mom, but I have to rely a lot on my mom
Yeah.
to watch her so that I can go to work, so that I can contribute financially, which was hard. That was a hard transition too. It broke my heart really to give up on my dream of being a stay-at-home mom. So that's the other catch is I was dreaming about being a stay-at-home mom, but yet I was resenting my husband for working while I stay at home.
It's natural to have those mixed emotions though, because you do have that, like, resentment because you wanna be able to have that time for yourself also, but then at the same time, whenever you do end up getting that time for yourself, you feel like crap because you're just exhausted and then all you want is to be with your baby. So, it's hard for me because I didn't have that drastic of shifts as you did because A, I was so young and I was a college student and I was already just going to college like part-time basically, and being a stay-at-home mom was my plan, but at the same time still going to college and trying to get a career, right? So, technically, I have been a stay-at-home mom all these years, and then, like, my school and business were just like a side thing
Mhm.
that I could do basically from home and just have to leave home 1 day out of the week to do a quick photo shoot for a couple hours and then come back or whatever it is, or go to a class for a couple of hours and then come back. So I still felt like even though I had those outlets, I was still a full-time stay-at-home mom and still am. So and it does shift with each kid because it just becomes more responsibility and, another mouth to feed and, you know, another personality to navigate and then making sure that you have those bonding times, not just you and each child, but your husband and each child, and then your marriage, making sure that you put in that time for
Yeah.
each other. And it gets harder with having more and more kids. And like with my first, my husband and I were able to have date nights more often. And with my second, even, we still had date nights fairly often. But then once my third came around, it became very much more rare. Like it would be like once every 3 to 4 months. Now we have baby number four and he's 8 months old. We have gone on one date and that was on Valentine's Day last month. And it was for breakfast for just like an hour. And it sucks because I we want so badly to put in that time for each other. It's just it's so hard to manage, and even though we do have help, we have his mom. She can only handle so much at once. She can't really handle all four
By
by
herself.
herself.
Yeah, for more than an
And
hour or
for
2.
yeah, for more than an hour or 2, and so she'll take the 2 older boys, or sometimes she'll take all 3 of the older boys and have them spend the night, but then we still have the baby.
Mhm.
So it's not like it's just him and
It's
I.
easier to
It
just
is
have
yes.
the youngest baby with you, but it's
Yeah.
still
We're still like
not
even
yeah.
even if he's asleep, we're still like, "Okay, is he gonna
We have
fall
to
off the
be
bed? Like, we
quiet.
have to be quiet," like so
We can't leave the house.
right.
Yeah,
You can't really like I mean, you could technically go out on a date
with the
with
baby.
the
Yeah.
baby, but it's still not as, like, peaceful and enjoyable because you have something that's
You're s It's
interrupting.
still drawing your focus.
Yes. So,
Not
it's hard.
bad, it's just different.
Yeah. So, I feel like that's, like, the main shift is just as you have each child, you really have to work harder in trying to find those pockets of time where you can be
Absolutely.
with your husband.
And when we were receiving mentorship and coaching, that was one of the biggest things that we gained from that is the best thing that you can give your child and is an example of a healthy marriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because your marriage, your relationship with your spouse is setting the bar for your kids and what they subconsciously expect and will tolerate in their future relationships.
Mhm.
And that was easy enough for us to understand long before we ever had kids.
Yeah.
And then we had our first baby. Then, it wasn't even just me starting to resent him. He was resenting me for needing him so much and for making him feel guilty about leaving
Yeah.
us to do things
Yeah.
and wanting to have a life outside of us and wanting to have an escape because I was making him feel guilty about that. And he was having to navigate my mood swings and so he was resenting me for different
But
reasons.
it's a double standard.
It is. Unfortunately.
Like, really, because I mean, resentment really sucks and it can take a toll on a relationship, but at the same time, you have every right to be
That's still
resentful.
valid.
It's still valid. And like, it's really, I feel like it's really hard to put each other in each other's shoes,
Mhm.
guess you could say, because, he's probably thinking like, oh, I want a life
You wanted to be a
outside, like,
stay-at-home
you wanted to
mom,
say
yeah.
like, you chose this type of
Mhm.
thing. But then you're just like, "When do I get to go out?" Because that's how I feel too, because my husband, he'll still go to concerts by himself and leave me home with all 4 kids, and I've been at home all with all 4 kids all day long, all week long, and I'm just like, "Okay, sure, you go have fun because you have to get all that off, like,
You need your outlet.
you need
I
your
wanna
outlet."
respect that.
Yeah, and I respect it and I let him do it, and because I truly don't mind being home with the kids, but then at the same time, it is that,
You
like,
still need your outlet.
yeah, it's
You
like,
need it
when am I gonna get
reciprocated.
mine? Yeah, this is my outlet right here. Like, this is my time away.
The only thing that really helped us get past that negative shift in our relationship was having hard conversations.
Yeah.
But I would have to cool off. I would be going through the heat of the emotion, and then I would do my best to process it as much as I can on my own, so I'm not just exploding on him and dumping all over him. I would try and figure out, dig deep, like, okay, can I name the feeling? Can I
Mhm,
name the cause? Can
mhm,
I figure out when I started feeling this way? Can I try and figure out what's actually going on underneath it? Like, if I'm feeling angry, what's underneath that anger? It was loneliness. It was abandonment. It was, it was deeper things. And the more I would dig deep into myself and process it and reflect on it, I would calm down for one, and then two, I would be able to talk to him from a really soft and a really vulnerable place instead of just a really explosive place. I would plan out how I would have this conversation with him so that I could present myself in a way that would be received well,
mhm.
and I would preface this with, "Hey, I'm not saying that what I'm feeling is right and correct. I'm just saying this is my experience right now.
Yeah.
And I want you to know from my perspective what I'm dealing with, what I'm going through, and what I think about you. So take it for what it's worth and help me get through this as a partner because I'm resenting you for these reasons. I'm feeling abandoned for these reasons and I want to work with you to get past this
Yeah.
because if I think logically, I know you're not trying to abandon me with
Right,
the
you're not
baby. I
purposely.
know you're not
Yeah.
doing any of this to hurt me. You have your own needs that you're trying to take care of. So, right or wrong, help me navigate this. Like, let me give you my perspective. And then he would reciprocate that with, all right, that's tough to hear, but I hear you. This is what I'm going through from my perspective. And this is what I'm starting to resent about you. And this is what I'm struggling with. And this is the identity shift I'm struggling to go through. And
Mhm.
having multiple of these really hard conversations and him realizing I'm not trying to attack him, I'm trying to solve a problem together.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that you have to navigate is triggers and defensiveness.
Yeah.
So that's why prefacing this conversation was so important
Yeah.
and telling him like I'm not having this conversation with you to come down on you and make you feel horrible, right? I'm just trying to let you know I'm feeling horrible and I want to figure out why together and what we can do together to grow out of this phase.
Yeah.
And communication, it's built over time. It's a skill set. It's a muscle, right?
Mhm.
So we were lucky enough to have been practicing weekly check-ins, before we even got married
Yeah.
and having conversations about vulnerable topics like sex or, different emotional things, childhood things. We've had practice being vulnerable to each other so that we had context having these conversations. And
Mhm.
I know that unfortunately, it's not a normal common thing for couples to have experience with.
Yeah.
So being in the thick of it, being in the heat of your emotions and everything, it's gonna be easier said than done
Yeah.
to have this conversation without letting your triggers take over
Yeah.
and letting defensiveness take over. Because if that happens, then you're just fighting.
Yeah.
Then you're just blaming the other person for everything wrong in your life. And then when you're triggered into defensiveness, you lose your capacity to have empathy
Mhm.
for how you've affected the other person without trying to.
Yeah. That's how my marriage has always been, basically, up until recently, because we didn't have those, like, heart-to-heart type of conversations and weekly check-ins like you were able to have. And even though, yeah, we got to know each other and we got to know each other's, childhood secrets and, like, all the things, we never really were able to do those kinds of check-ins. We never were aware that those were things that needed to be said, and we also know what triggers each other, and the issue was with me always wanting to talk to my husband about certain things, even if I came in a gentle way, it would always end up becoming him being defensive and me exploding and it turning into a fight. So it's literally just like this past year where we are finally able to like navigate it in the way that you just spoke about basically me approaching him and prefacing it and just like letting him know I'm not trying to attack you. I love you and I'm coming from this perspective and this is how I see the situation and how it's making me feel. And I'm not saying that you're purposely trying to hurt me. It's just
This is my
this, and this.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's definitely very hard
Oh,
to
yeah.
come from the, like, high of explosion type of arguments to being like, "Okay, let's
Let's
breathe. Let me
move
just"
this.
yeah. So it's very hard to make that shift, and so I feel like the last year, it was like a gradual shift. So, like, each argument that would happen, I would become a little bit less explosive and he would become a little bit less defensive. And so then it just kind of like eventually wavered into like, okay, now we can have actual meaningful heart to heart conversation and even get emotional with each other without it being explosive. It's just vulnerability. It's
Mhm.
not like vomit of all these emotions and accusing each other of making the other person feel that way.
And putting all of the responsibility of the emotions on the other person.
Yeah.
If I could offer my perspective on navigating this kind of situation, it would be that the repair part
Mhm.
is going to be the bridge towards changing the dynamic.
Yeah.
And this is true for kids too. If you explode on your kids, you need to initiate the repair to that relationship.
Yeah.
It's the same with your marriage.
Yeah.
When you explode on each other, you guys need to take the time to chill, to reflect, and repair the damage and talk about it. With Luis and I, we've always grown closer to each other after a big fight
Mhm.
because things would come to the surface that hadn't come to the surface before and we would talk about it. I didn't realize about myself, but this really triggered me and this brought up all of these things for me. I didn't realize that was happening. I'm so sorry. I don't want to make you feel that way. I promise I'm going to keep that in mind and I'm going to try harder to understand that this is the things that come up when this happens and that repair, it happens after reflection, right? You can't repair the relationship if you don't mean it.
Yeah.
You can't just say I'm sorry, walk away and expect something different to happen unless you're taking the time to give it some serious thought, some deeper thought of what's really going on here, what's causing all of this stuff to happen, the underlying roots behind what we're seeing and
Mhm.
experiencing. And once you're able to bring that awareness of each other, that reflective conversation to each other, you can agree like, "All right, hey," agree on a safe word, right? "Hey, this is getting heated. Can we take a minute?" And then give yourself some breathing room before you explode on each other.
Yeah. I'll explode on him in my mind. Like, I will literally
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
full on conversation in my head, basically, in order to go in and, like, I'll have the full conversation in my head and navigate the conversation that was in my head and, like, break it down and be like, "Okay, how can I say that without sounding like I wanna kill him?" You know? Like
Yeah, and I think that's a really healthy thing to do because you need to process through all your emotions.
Yeah.
And once you have that, even if it's an imaginary conversation, you're still able to process through it and figure out, all right, I'm
Yeah.
getting this vibe, and this is actually what's triggering me about the situation. And a
Mhm.
lot of times it's not what you thought originally was triggering you.
Yeah.
It's something completely unrelated that you haven't even looked at yet.
It's funny to me, though, because I've noticed when I have these, like, so-called arguments and conversations with my husband, that what he does during them is something that triggers me, and he'll just, like, sit there and shut down. I think he's, like, shutting down and completely, like, avoiding the whole thing, but really he's just, like, processing what I just said, and I'm just, like,
Mhm.
there, like, "Will you just say something?" Like, "Please just say something." But then and and I used to be like, "Tell me how you're feeling," like, but now I'm just like, "Would you like to say anything?" Like, you know?
And that those are all skills built as you practice repairing,
Yeah,
after a fight. And that's where the shifts happen during the repair.
yeah.
Another big relationship shift that I've been navigating is with my mom, right? So Luis and I lived on our own. We had roommates. We just had an apartment to the two of us. And then after we got married, I felt called back home because my parents were still living in their house and they were taking care of my grandma who was really sick. And I wanted to be there for it. I wanted to help take care of my grandma. I wanted just, I felt like God was calling me back into the house
Yeah.
to help.
Mhm.
And I moved back in. My grandma had died just a few months before I moved back in,
Mhm.
which was heartbreaking, but then I was moving back in and helping support my mom through that grief.
Yeah.
And my dad died like within a year of me moving back into the house.
Mhm.
So my mom's life changed so drastically within that time span. And having me and Louise here through it, she would not have been able to make it through. She would not have been able to keep the house, right? So having us here to help her through that, help take care of the house, to help step up with the finances and all of those things, having all of that time with my dad at what I didn't know was the end of his life, we lost him really suddenly.
Yeah.
So I'm just so grateful that I listened to that nudge
Mhm.
because I got to have conversations with my dad that I never had before. I got to go on dates with my parents, double dates, and just build this adult relationship with them
Mhm.
that was really healing to my inner child, right?
Yeah.
And now having a baby and living with my mom and her retiring and helping take care of the baby and me having to go back to work, all of these shifts have been happening and she's put in so much effort to be respectful of
Mhm.
Luis and my privacy and our boundaries and being a support system and trying her best to implement my and Luis's values when she's watching the baby for us instead of just what she thinks is best. I'm really lucky that my mom has a mind to at least try to do these things, right?
Yeah.
It's easier said than done because she has an idea of what's right and wrong. She has an idea of what she thinks needs to happen and it's not completely aligned all the time. So having multi-generational living is great and it's difficult at the same time. So it's nice to have someone in the house that can watch the baby so I can take a shower or while we have a little date night or things like that. And at the same time, it's still navigating another relationship and another set of values and another perspective because it's my relationship with my mom and it's Luis's relationship with my mom and my daughter's relationship with my mom. And it's been an interesting shift because there are times where I lean on her too much and I get too comfortable with the help that she offers me.
Mhm.
And I have to check back into reality and realize I don't want my mom raising my child. I want to be raising my child
Mhm.
and using her as a support system, not a default setting.
That's tricky because ever since I became a mom, I've been on my own with my husband, and so I've never had to live with a parent while being a parent, but I do also have parents close and far away. So my mom and my relationship with her is very, I guess, different from what a lot of people usually go through. Like, my mom and I are really close. She's like my best friend. We tell each other everything. And I think that was like a hard pill for my husband to swallow. And I know that it's kind of tricky for him to kind of navigate it and be comfortable with it. Um, but I know that he's also close with his mom and she's around a lot more than my mom is. My mom is around just with FaceTime almost on the daily with me. And his mom is around physically. We see her, at least 2 to 3 times a week. She's able to take the boys and they spend the night or just hang out for the day or whatever. Either way, though, there's boundaries that are set.
I kind of know what you're saying because you can set boundaries with someone who's watching your child, whether that's a babysitter or a family member.
Mhm.
And they can do their best to respect your boundaries, but they're human.
Yeah.
So if I say no screen time, but my mom's watching TV when she's with the baby or checking an email in front of her, and that's not what I would have done, or that's like against what I asked her to do. Sometimes it's like, oops, oh, I was just watching a video, a farm video, and she was just watching horses. And,
Mhm.
it's still a breach of trust in a way.
Yeah.
They're how big or how small
Mhm.
it is, it's still hard because you're not in control of what happens around your child
When you're not around.
when you're and so it's such a double-edged sword
Yeah.
because you want to be able to have time away from your family, even if it's just for an hour, to work on your marriage or to have time to yourself,
Yeah.
to work on your mental health. But then you have to let go of that control for
Yeah.
that time frame.
Even after setting
You
boundaries.
set those boundaries and I mean, of course, every situation's gonna be different, and if the breach in boundaries is huge, if it's, like, really significant, then that's gonna be a different story, and that's gonna need to be addressed, and you're gonna have to figure out whether or not you trust that person again with your kids going forward.
Mhm.
But if it's an oopsie, if it's, like, a little, assumingly harmless, breach of the boundaries, then you just have to have that talk and have that conversation like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I set these boundaries for a reason, and it's not because I'm making this stuff up, and it's not because I hate my kids. It's because this is how it affects them the next day."
Yeah.
Like, especially if it's like eating sugar or eating junk food or eating something with food dyes. It's like, "Hey, I'm setting these boundaries because it affects my kids for the next week.
Yeah.
It affects their behavior. It affects their meltdowns."
It really does.
It really especially when you have kids that are sensitive to these foods and to these chemicals,
Mhm.
because every child's gonna be different,
Yeah.
but still, like, you're the mom. You get to control how your kids are fed, right?
Yeah.
So, just please understand, please respect this. I'm not doing this because 'cause I'm crazy. I'm not doing this to be unreasonable. I'm doing this because
It's what's best for my kid.
the consequences of not doing this are not worth it
Yeah.
for that moment.
We hope this conversation was able to spark some reflection in your own experience in life.
And we wanna encourage you to dive deep into what you're feeling and experiencing and process it so that you are able to have these hard conversations with your loved ones and approach it from a place of love and calm. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Her Rediscovery.
If today's episode spoke to you, share it with a woman who needs to feel seen.
And take one small step this week toward the woman you're becoming.
She was never lost.
She was just waiting to be rediscovered. We'll
We'll
see
see
you
you
next
next week.
week.